I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and what a delight to have back with us today Liz Peek. She's a columnist for FoxNews.com and the Fiscal Times. Spent over 20 years on Wall Street as a top-ranked research analysis with her firms and everything that she's done in analyzing business. And the last time we talked to her, we were just going into the presidential debate, so now we're on the other side, and I really value her input as to what she thought happened there and where we're going. Hi, Liz. Good to see you.
Nice to be with you. Thank you.
Good to see you again. Well, what was your take after the big debate?
My take was totally wrong. Actually, I got Carly Fiorina right. I think that was she was definitely the person who won the so-called kiddie table debate. But I really thought that voters would react negatively to Trump's bullying. And instead, I think, that such is the tenor of the moment that people actually responded favorably to that. I didn't. I think that, he's rude, he's arrogant, and he's not my kind of person. So I really didn't think that he did very well or came across well. And in fact, his unfavorables did go up after the debate, which I sort of anticipated. But you got to give him credit. He's just kind of like a steamroller. He just keeps bullying forward, and he continues to do very well in polling. So there you are.
He took a lot of flack, at least for about 3.5 seconds, over his comment to Megyn Kelly and his comment about Rosie O'Donnell, which seemed to accelerate the war on women for about 30 seconds, and then it went away.
It's just amazing to me. I mean, the explanations for, I've heard these conspiracy theories about how Fox is involved in this and how Megyn Kelly went on vacation to get away from Trump. I mean, it's such baloney. I can tell you, as someone who has talked to some of the people involved, Megyn Kelly had a vacation coming, and she's taking it like about half the people at Fox right now. And that had nothing to do with Donald Trump. Look, at the end of the day, here's a reality that's very tough to escape. Donald Trump is a gigantic celebrity, and so he has the enormous advantage of basically being able to make a phone call to any news station in the country, including yours, and get immediate airtime. That is a big deal because his ratings are gigantic. Everyone is very eager to see what he's going to say next and whether he's going to engage in, yet another brawl. So, look, I mean, I think that he's just going to kind of keep rolling forward here until something changes. And what'll that be? It's not going to be that he runs out of money. He might decide he doesn't want to spend a huge amount of his personal money on a campaign. So far, he hasn't. Again, he's got all this free publicity, so he's not buying ads or anything. And he hasn't really hired a big ground force of the kind that you do ultimately need in states like Iowa and New Hampshire to kind of rally and sign up your voters. So it may be that at some point he sort of says, wait a minute, I'm not really sure I want to dip into my own bank account to that extent. Or he just creates such an incredible gaffe of some sort that he can't recover from it. So, you have to kind of ask yourself, what are the red lines these days? As you point out, it appears that red lines for Trump are kind of pink. He can kind of traipse over being insulting and crude about women, get away with it. It's sort of amazing to me.
If you add Trump, Fiorina, and Carson, you add those numbers together, it's saying something about the Beltway.
No question about it. People are tired of so-called establishment politicians. A lot of people, Scott Walker's out on the stump today talking about how Mitch McConnell's really the bad person in the race. Of course, if you're a Republican, and I am, the really sad thing that's come out of all this is that, we are eating our young. I mean, everyone's going after each other. Scott Walker's going after Mitch McConnell and Jeb Bush, and Trump is going after absolutely everybody and actually even refusing to say that he will run as a Republican and not as an independent. I mean, this is pretty tough stuff for Republicans. And the only consolation, I guess, is that Democrats are even in worse shape. They've got a candidate who is truly, seriously flawed and floundering. And none of her rivals are really serious candidates, in my view. None of them is willing to really challenge her. So So, boy, is it a messy primary season.
It really is. Sticking with the Republicans just for a moment, there were some bumps. Carly came up significantly. She's now looked like she's going to be in the top tier for the next debate coming up in September. Rubio went up. Cruz went up. Huckabee went up. What do you think?
I thought Rubio did a really spectacular job, and also did Carly Fiorina. I mean, as much as we're all enjoying the Trump phenomenon, where he talks in broken sentences and can't really put together a coherent paragraph, these two really can articulate a point of view very well. And I think that viewers and voters appreciate that. They have policy positions that are well thought out. Cruz, obviously, ditto, is an extremely capable debater. We all know he went to Princeton. He's very smart debater. You know, the candidates who actually could express their point of view well, and Huckabee's a natural at that, all did pretty well. You know, look, there's a lot of time to go, and I think Karl Rove was on Fox this morning saying, look, at various times we've had Herman Cain, Giuliani, Michelle Bachmann, and Newt Gingrich twice in the lead, significantly in the lead, in campaigns, Hillary Clinton in 2008, where it looked like they had it locked up, and then it kind of faltered. So there's a lot of road to travel before we get to the primaries even, much less the general election.
Some are saying that there is nothing to base this cycle on. It's so outside the box that we're in uncharted waters. Would you think so?
Well, I don't think we've ever had a candidate quite like Donald Trump in terms of his celebrity, the fact that he has so much money to spend on an election. I mean, you kind of search your memory. Obviously, we had Fred Thompson, but he was like, you know, here and gone in a minute, and didn't really have any money to spend, and never really kind of geared up to you know, actually put a campaign together. You know, I was thinking back to the Barry Goldwater election, and that was in 1964, and I was a kid, and he was considered outrageous because he said really outlier things about bombing China, remember, and bombing Vietnam, using nuclear war, you know, and the Republicans nominated him because he had a very strong following in the base, if you call it the base, the primary voters, and he got just completely walloped because his ideas really, and when it came to sort of mainstream Americans, they just couldn't really deal with the idea that we were going to wage nuclear war against someone in Asia. So I think the answer is I don't remember a time like this. Maybe historians can go back into the 18 or 1900s and come up with a parallel. I don't see one. It's everybody hates the establishment. That's kind of what you come away thinking. And here's the thing. Republican voters are mad because they went to bat in 2014, gave the Senate over to the Republicans, and they expected to see more from that election than we've seen. And the only thing I'd say about that is, first of all, a lot of the things that make people so angry these days are the executive actions that Obama has put forward on climate change and on immigration. Well, there's not much you can do. I mean, those things are in the courts. They're going to be in the courts for a while. But the Congress doesn't really have much to say about that unless it can find some way to defund part of that process. And ditto, people wanted to see Obamacare repealed. Look, he's got veto power. Obama still has enough votes in the House and the Senate to basically uphold a veto of any measure that the Republicans put forward. So I think the criticism of the establishment, meaning McConnell and Boehner in particular, is a little overdone. I understand the frustration, but McConnell in particular is really determined, as a longtime senator and observer of our constitutional process and how Congress is supposed to work, of kind of going back to more normal functioning. He's very proud of the fact that we have amendments being put forward now where Harry Reid just squashed all efforts to amend various bills and so forth. Well, Americans aren't very excited about that. They don't see much to take home from that. But, you know, I kind of agree that it's important to get back to the normal functioning of Congress.
One quick question before we take a break. It appears that maybe Trump has gotten a little cracked this last 24 hours on his immigration policy. Can you imagine gathering up millions and throwing them over the fence? Would we tolerate that?
No, I don't think we'll tolerate it. We're not going to do it. And no one's going to be elected, I don't think, who really proposes such a thing. Look, I think we do have to deal with the people in the country illegally. You don't call it amnesty. Republicans can't offer up amnesty because we've seen in the past, and that's a legitimate grievance, that it only invites more people across our border, just as, by the way, President Obama's mini DREAM Act did in 2012. Definitely opened the border to the surge that we saw in 2013. Somehow we have to allow some legal status for people in the country. I would say no, never citizenship, because they haven't earned that, but some sort of legal representation here, and then make sure that that's the end of it, that we do not have a border that's as porous as it has been, because that's not, I mean, Trump's right. A nation without borders is not a nation of laws, and we pride ourselves on being a rule of law nation.
All right, let me take a break. Liz Peek is back with us. You can go to lizpeek.com. That's her website, lizpeek.com. And, of course, foxnews.com, and then, of course, the Fiscal Times. But we'll get into Hillary when we get back in just a moment. Welcome back. What a delight to have back with us today Liz Peek. She's a columnist for foxnews.com and the Fiscal Times. Her website is lizpeek.com. You might want to check that out, LIZPEEK.com. Well, Liz, again, thank you for your time. It appears that Hillary has just got unbelievable trouble. Newt said yesterday he doesn't think she's going to get the nomination. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. There's been some polling recently that shows a great deal of doubt now about whether or not she will get the nomination. I think people have to kind of calm down, though, because you have to then say who's going to get it instead. I don't think it's going to be Bernie Sanders. I really think a 73-year-old socialist is really not someone who can go the distance. And so far, really, nobody else has come in who's a serious challenger. Now, I think Joe Biden could come in the race. That might actually excite some potential there. But so far, she isn't really challenged. And here's the amazing thing. In spite of all the stuff that's come out, 78% of Democrats still consider her honest and trustworthy. So let's face it, there are a lot of people who might vote for Hillary Clinton who don't follow the news, who actually believe her when she says it's all a vast right-wing conspiracy. I mean, I find that kind of amazing because I live in the political weeds, and I don't know how anyone honestly could come up with that as an explanation, or who actually could still believe what she says. But, you know, anyway, there's a pretty big following out there that still likes her a lot. But that said, I don't think, honestly, if she's the nominee, that she'll win the nomination. I think the Republicans would have to nominate someone completely incapable of appealing to the country overall before she's going to be elected, because this email issue just is going to continue to go on. I mean, now with the FBI conducting an investigation, which could take months, if not a year, there will be constant revelations about that, constant references to it throughout the next year. It's certainly going to be fodder for anyone who opposes her, either for the Democratic nomination or in the general election. So, yeah, I think she has problems. By the way, the best thing about the email scandal from Hillary's viewpoint is it's taken everyone's eyes off the foundation issues, because those are equally unseemly and tawdry and possibly even illegal. The trading of favors and votes and particular attentions while she was as Secretary of State for monies passed to the foundation and paid to Bill Clinton. That's a terrible story. And the only thing, again, because of the email scandal, which is sort of more current, we've kind of stopped talking about it. But there's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, very well said, by the way. I think it's interesting that now they're saying there's more than one server. They were found in a closet in her bathroom. I mean, this gets this gets crazier by the moment. But sooner or later, they're going to find the emails that connect the dots on Benghazi. And I can't imagine that Trey Gowdy's going to let that slide by. He is a dog with a sock when it comes to this issue.
He really is. And, you know, he's taken a lot of guff for spending so much time and effort on this. But let's face it, we would not know or really have looked into this private server issue without the Trey Gowdy investigation. I was thinking about that this morning. I mean, the man deserves a round of applause, right? Because really this is a problem. I mean, you can't, as Secretary of State, one of the highest offices in the land, completely disregard the security issues attendant to having a private email server, and also just the wanton disregard for custom and sort of what the policy is of your own government. So I think it's an embarrassment to the State Department. And by the way, no one has talked much about the various issues that have pitted the State Department against our intelligence agencies. You know, they're kind of fighting over emails, what should be revealed. The State Department, as you probably know, basically told investigators there were no emails that had been sent by one of her aides. Now it turns out there are like 30,000 of them or something. It's unbelievable. And this is all under the Obama White House. And what can they be thinking of all of this? This is a reflection on how the White House was managed. And I don't know about you, but all this stuff about how nobody knew she was using a private server, when you get an email, don't you look at the address? If it was Hillary Clinton at clintonemail.org or com, don't you think that would have kind of raised a few eyebrows? I think the whole thing's kind of unimaginable, honestly, and attests to the very, very poor management of this administration, which I think is really one of the worst ever.
If the president wanted to, you think he could call the dogs off on this investigation?
Good question. Now, I don't think he really could. Now, I think it's, you know, the FBI has it, their teeth are in it. I have to think that in our intelligence organizations and law enforcement generally, there are a few people who are not so keen on the Obama administration. I could be totally wrong about that. But, you know, I think that the pretty heavy-handed direction of Eric Holder and so forth these past 6 years have probably left some scars. And there may be some people in that organization that really just kind of want to press this, want to see where it goes. And the Benghazi thing also, don't forget, involves some pretty high up people in our intelligence organizations, et cetera. Again, they may feel they've been thrown under the bus a time or two. So I'm not sure that the Obama White House could pull the plug on this just yet.
Okay. The president seems to be now very worried about his legacy. There's even rumors about where he might end up living. Some say Hawaii, some say Chicago, some say he's going to stay right there inside the Beltway. Aside from that, what could he look for to be a legacy that would be something he could hang his hat on?
Well, it's an interesting realization that when you elect somebody in their 40s, they're going to be around for a very long time. And so their conduct, the conduct of a very young president going forward for decades, we don't really know what that looks like, right? Because John F. Kennedy was a young president, but he obviously was killed in office. So I think it's going to be very interesting to watch. President Obama is, I think, someone who's very concerned with his self-image. He's very worried about how history will view him. So if someone was suggesting to me that he really wants to see a Republican elected, this is a little far-fetched, because he doesn't want to have all his policies kind of roll forward and inevitably get banged up a little bit. For example, Obamacare. 2018 rolls around and we have the Cadillac tax imposed. What's that going to look like? My guess is the unions are going to go crazy. It's going to really drive healthcare costs for the majority of Americans through the roof. You know, maybe he would just as soon not have to experience that. If there's a Republican president, maybe that won't happen. So I do think it's going to be interesting. They're talking about him living in D.C. because one of their kids is still in school there. That seems possible to me, but honestly, not very dignified. Once you're president and you're gone, I think you should leave D.C. That's too close to the center of the political vortex, and I think it would be really unseemly to kind of have him looking over the shoulder, figuratively or whatever, of the next president, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. My guess is I'm worried they're going to come to New York, which really would be kind of difficult for New Yorkers, just in terms of congestion and all the pomp and ceremony that goes with a president living here. But I think it's not impossible.
Okay, so the other possibility is the deal with Iran, and if that could be part of his legacy. But do you think that thing is veto-proof?
I think it's veto-proof. I don't think you're going to have enough Democrats who basically flaunt their disaffection with the White House and sign up to oppose it. But you raise a good point. What will Obama want to be doing after the White House? Certainly working on climate change. At least that's certainly been something that he has talked about for years and years. And let's face it, the measures that he's taken to restrict emissions through the EPA, as I said, they're going to be tied up in the courts. They may or may not survive. So, you know, Al Gore has that territory sort of staked out, but Al Gore is not as visible as he once was. That could become Obama's cause, or he could picture himself as sort of a global pacifist, you know, going around and inserting himself into negotiations, not the hard negotiations. He's not good at that. And he's really sort of a strange character in the sense he doesn't really like to mix with people very much, but at least be sort of a talking head on what we should be doing in terms of foreign relations. That would be the most ironic outcome, because most of us think he's done a pretty terrible job on foreign relations. Yeah. But he could picture himself as, you know, a fellow or sort of a related dignitary at the Kennedy School or SAIS or one of these organizations, and you know, have something to say on every foreign problem. I mean, as I say, sort of ironic.
Yeah. All right. Before we go, again, lizpeek.com if you want to correspond with her through the website. Liz, back to the candidates. Somewhere along the line, there's going to be some falling out. They just don't have the money to stay in it. We're about 4 or 5 months away from the primary season now. So the Chris Christies, the Rand Pauls, the Gindells, the Gilmores, do you think they'll begin to fall out?
I hope so. I hope so, because right now, you know, one of the things that's also helping Donald Trump is that if you put his numbers together with all the rest put together, he's only at 26% of the Republican voter pool, and you know, that leaves 75% for someone else. But yeah, I think that, look, George Pataki should not be in the race. Jim Gilmore should not be in the race. Those guys came in for who knows what personal reasons, but in Pataki's case, probably to build his law practice. Time for them to get out. I think that Santorum, Christie, I don't know. Christie's got some backers, as does Rand Paul. I don't think they're going to go the distance, but both may stay in for a little while longer. But yeah, I definitely think by the time of the next debate, we'll have a couple of candidates crash and burn. And I think that'll be good. Honestly, we don't need more people in this race. We certainly don't need 16 or 17.
No, we don't. I mean, it's hard enough to keep track of just the top 5 or 10. Well, thank you, Liz. What a delight to have you back. And let's stay in touch as this thing progresses. I guess the next debate will be there at the Reagan Library on the 16th of September. CNN is hosting this one, and it looks like Carly has worked her way up to be a part of the main debate, so this ought to be pretty interesting.
I think it will be interesting, and I think it's going to be very interesting if these guys ask Trump difficult questions, which he doesn't like, whether he'll go after them and whether voters will begin to see that it really wasn't Megyn Kelly, it's anyone taking him on. By the way, I recommend to you the interview he did just recently with Chuck Todd. It's just hilarious reading, and it's just vintage Trump. So I got quite a bit of fun out of reading it, so I'm sure you will too. He
took a swipe at Carly the other day and said she really wasn't a good CEO. That could come up in the debate, and she takes a swipe back. I mean, all of a sudden, there's the war on women again.
Yeah, I mean, look, Carly Fiorina has a little bit, you know, that's, I think, why she didn't do better in her Senate race in California. Yes, she became CEO of a big organization, but let's face it, she was fired. Now, Donald Trump's had some pretty big problems in his business career, too. So, you know, I think it's unseemly for him just to sort of act as though everyone else is an idiot. Unless your name is Trump, you don't have any sense whatsoever. That's kind of his talking point. I don't find it very attractive.
You know, you're spot on with the bullying thing, no question about it. Thank you, Liz. Let's get together again soon. Thanks for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, all right. We'll be right back.